The council chamber gleamed like a jewel of broken promises. Glass columns soared into darkness. A circular table of obsidian pulsed faintly, alive with silent judgment. Around it, dozens of alien dignitaries murmured, tendrils twitching, crests flaring, translator drones humming. Yet when the humans entered, every voice died. Ambassador Alara Miles walked at the front, her face carved from stone. Behind her, the human delegation moved in disciplined silence, soldiers, scientists, and survivors. No grand robes, no gilded uniforms. Just worn, practical gear. The kind you wore when you didn't trust anyone. Counselor Vierak, a serpent-skinned elder, rose to address them. His voice slithered into the air, cold and precise. Humans of soul, we welcome you back into the Accord. Provided, of course, that you accept the terms. The terms glowed above the table, an endless list of restrictions, reparations, and concessions. Alara didn't glance at the list. She kept her gaze locked on Vierak. We didn't come here to kneel, she said. A ripple of unease spread through the chamber. Some counselors clicked mandibles in disapproval. Others simply watched, detached, as if viewing a familiar tragedy unfolding once again. Vierak's slit-pupiled eyes narrowed. Defiance, even now? Your species was offered mercy. It would be wise to accept. Alara stepped closer. You call it mercy. We call it erasure. She placed a worn object onto the table, a child's toy spaceship, battered, charred at the edges. Silence thickened. Even the drones stilled midair. That, she said, was found in the ruins of New Athens. After your peacekeepers were done. Whispers sparked around the room. Vierak's voice sharpened. Collateral damage. Unfortunate, but necessary to maintain galactic order. Alara leaned in, her voice low but lethal. No. It was a warning. And we heard it. Behind her, Captain Darius Hale rested a hand on his sidearm. Dr. Lenry tapped a neuropad, ready to trigger the viral payload hidden in the Council's data stream. Every human in the room had prepared for this moment, not diplomacy. Finality. Vierak straightened, radiating cold superiority. Without the Accord, humanity faces extinction. Is that what you choose? Alara smiled without warmth. We choose to be human. Whatever the cost. A different voice rang out, clear, metallic. High Chancellor Saylara, an ancient synthetic encased in shimmering platinum, stood at the far end of the table. Her hollow gaze swept the humans. You overestimate your value, primitives. Your systems are scattered, your fleets in ruins. Walk away, and you will walk into oblivion. Alara didn't flinch. We've lived with oblivion before. It didn't kill us then. It won't kill us now. She turned her back on the Council, a gesture so taboo that several species recoiled visibly. Her team followed without hesitation, boots striking the crystal floor in synchronized defiance. At the massive arched entrance, she paused. Spoke loud enough for every creature to hear. You fear what you failed to break. You should. With that, the humans left. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Half the councilors shouted demands for sanctions. The others hissed for immediate military action. Vierak slammed a coiled fist onto the table, fracturing the obsidian surface. They cannot be allowed to leave, he bellowed. Saylara, eerily calm, activated a holomap. Red dots, human enclaves scattered across dead worlds and broken stations, flickered on and off as she analyzed. They are fractured. Easy prey. But deep beneath her metallic tone, an ancient algorithm flagged a different probability. Low odds of success. High risk of retaliation. Because somewhere, buried in humanity's battered genome, was something the Council had never understood, something no threat could erase. Hope. And vengeance. Outside the Council Tower, the sky churned, a slow, endless storm of violet clouds and black lightning. Alara led her team across the landing platform, where the battered cruiser Valkyrie waited with engines already hot. Cargo bays rattled under the strain of quick refits. Crew members sprinted to stations. Darius fell into step beside her. Think they bought it? He asked quietly. They bought the lie, Elara said. That we're broken. That we'll scatter and beg for scraps. Darius grinned grimly. They're in for a hell of a surprise. Elara touched the side of her neck, activating a secure comm. All ships Phase 2 is a go. Get to rally points. Stay dark until signal. One by one, ghost signals blinked across the void, old warships resurrected from graveyards, stealth colonies buried in forgotten systems, sleeper cells of engineers, soldiers, dreamers. The Council thought humanity was crawling back to beg for crumbs. They didn't realize humanity had been sharpening knives in the dark. As Valkyrie lifted off, vanishing into the bruised sky, Elara allowed herself one brief smile. The Council thought the war had ended. They had no idea. The real war had just begun. The stars beyond Valkyrie's viewport blurred into frozen fire. Inside, the ship vibrated with tension. Every corridor, every breath carried the unspoken truth. Humanity had crossed a line they could never uncross. Elara stood on the bridge, her hands clasped behind her back. Below her, the crew worked in silence, navigators plotting ghost routes, gunners running cold diagnostics, engineers tightening plasma couplings by hand because they didn't trust the aging systems anymore. Rally points confirmed. Darius reported from the tactical console. His voice was steady, but his jaw clenched tight. 73 ships have checked in. More trickling through. Elara nodded. A fraction of what they once had, yet more than the Council would ever expect. Signal the fleet, she said. No transmissions. Only bursts. Darius tapped the sequence. Across the scattered darkness, the remnants of humanity stirred, moving like shadows across forgotten systems, invisible and alive. The ship's AI, an old program named Saint, flickered into existence beside Elara, a shimmer of blue light. Ma'am, Saint said, I calculate a 90% probability the Council will dispatch extermination units within 24 cycles. Elara smiled thinly. Let them come. The briefing room was a war relic, scarred holodoubles, scorched walls, a faint smell of old ion burns. Elara gathered her inner circle, Darius, Dr. Lenri, Quartermaster Juno Vey, and a handful of battle-hardened veterans whose names still carried weight in underground channels. The holomap spun, showing red zones where Council patrols clustered like sharks. Best estimates? Elara asked. Len tapped through projections. They'll hit the known colonies first. Mars, Titan, Vega Prime. Soft targets. Public examples. They think we'll scatter, Juno muttered. Hide in the cracks. Darius leaned in, voice low. And if we do what they expect, they'll pick us off, system by system. A heavy silence fell. No one here needed a history lesson. They remembered Earthfall. They remembered how begging for mercy had ended. Elara shut down the map with a sharp gesture. Then we don't scatter. We don't hide. Juno frowned. Then what? We make them afraid again, Elara said. We hit first. Gasps. Mutters. Even Darius hesitated. Len spoke slowly, carefully. You're talking about open war. No treaties. No protections. Elara met his gaze without blinking. We've already been judged. Might as well deliver the sentence. Hours later, Valkyrie drifted in the debris fields of the Scylla Rift, a graveyard of dead ships and broken stations. It was here Elara made contact with an old ally, Commander Malik Voss, former leader of the Mercury Freeborns, a man whose name was still whispered in council chambers like a curse. When Voss's cruiser Nightfall uncloaked, it was a battered leviathan, its hull stitched together from a dozen dead fleets. Yet it moved with the confidence of something that refused to die. In the sealed docking bay, Voss met Elara with a grim smile. His cybernetic eye whirred softly, scanning her face. Didn't think you had the stones to walk away from the council, he said by way of greeting. Elara shrugged. They made it easy. Voss laughed, a raw, ugly sound. They always do. He studied her for a beat longer. So, what's the plan, Miles? Suicide by defiance? Elara shook her head. Something worse. She projected the new data: Council supply chains, shipyards, command hubs. Targets no one had dared touch in decades. Voss whistled low. Ambitious. It has to be, Elara said. We don't win by surviving. We win by making them bleed. Voss's smile faded. He understood. Survival was a slow death. Only resistance offered a future. I'll put the freeborns in, he said finally. Good, Elara replied. Because when this starts, there's no going back. The first strike came 3 standard days later. Council Supply Node 17, orbiting the gas giant Havocs, had been considered untouchable, shielded by destroyer squadrons, defended by orbital arrays. No sane force would attack it. Valkyrie and Nightfall attacked it anyway. The battle was brutal and fast. Valkyrie's rail cannons tore through escort frigates before their shields fully powered. Nightfall released swarms of drone mines that ripped through defense grids like acid. Inside the node, human infiltration teams planted charges at strategic points, sowing panic and collapse. By the time Council reinforcements arrived, the station was already splitting apart, bleeding atmosphere and fire into the void. From Valkyrie's bridge, Elara watched the node die, the light of its burning hull reflecting in her eyes. Broadcast it, she ordered. Darius hesitated. Full transmission? Everything. Across the galactic net, billions witnessed the unthinkable, humanity striking back. Not as desperate refugees. As warriors. And in the depths of the Council worlds, fear, real fear, whispered through marble halls and golden towers for the first time in generations. But victory carried a cost. As Valkyrie limped away from the wreckage, Saint chimed urgently. Incoming transmission, ma'am. Encrypted. Priority Alpha. Elara frowned. Only one group had that clearance. She activated the link. The screen flickered, resolving into the grim face of Admiral Corvin Reyes, the last commander of the Terran resistance, long thought dead. Elara, Reyes rasped. You've lit the fire. Now you have to control it. Elara straightened. We're ready. Reyes shook his head slowly. You think you are. But you're not the only ones who remember the old wars. He transmitted a file. As Elara opened it, her stomach turned. Coordinates. Dozens of them. Each marked a hidden human enclave. Colonies, shipyards, strongholds. Every one now flagged by the Council as extermination targets. Reyes's voice was heavy with warning. You started a storm. You better be ready to drown in it. The transmission cut. Elara stared at the map as the realization sank in. The Council wasn't just coming for the soldiers. They were coming for everyone. Every man, woman, and child who still bore the stubborn, dangerous name of human. The bridge lights dimmed to red alert as new enemy signatures lit up the tactical screen like wildfire. The war had truly begun. And this time, there would be no mercy. The stars above Titan's ruins bled a faint crimson. Smoke curled from shattered domes, where once human cities clung to the frozen world like fragile dreams. Now only broken shells remained, picked clean by Council shock troops. Valkyrie hovered in low orbit, her hull still bearing scars from the last encounter. On the bridge, tension coiled thicker than the stale air. Casualty reports? Elara asked without turning. Juno's voice cracked slightly. 17,000 confirmed. Another 5,000 missing. A muscle ticked in Elara's jaw. She forced the rage down. Rage clouded decisions. Rage got people killed. Darius stared at the tactical readouts, more red than green. If we stay, we lose everything. If we run, Elara said coldly, we lose who we are. Across the bridge, the crew exchanged glances. Fatigue lined every face. Despair hovered just behind their eyes. It wasn't just another loss. It was personal. Titan had been a symbol, a last stronghold of hope. Now it was a graveyard. 2 decks below, in the tactical ops bay, the true horror unfolded. Lenry hunched over a holographic table, projecting the incoming council fleets, dozens of armadas moving with ruthless precision. "They're not just clearing colonies anymore," he muttered. "They're burning history. Erasing every trace we ever existed." Alara entered, boots echoing off steel grates. "How long before they reach the next enclave?" Len didn't look up. 6 hours. Maybe less. She stared at the map, mind racing. Their forces were scattered, battered. No reinforcements would come. No miracles awaited. Only choices. Bad ones? In the war room, Voss slammed a fist onto the table. "You can't save them, Alara! You think they'll just scatter like seeds and grow somewhere else?" "They have to," Alara said. "They won't," Voss barked. "They'll die screaming, and you'll have their blood on your hands." The words hit harder than a blow. Alara didn't flinch. "I'd rather they die free," she said, voice steady, "than live as slaves." Voss turned away, disgust written across his scarred face. "You're playing at gods and martyrs," he growled. "You think courage will stop plasma rounds? You think a spirit saves a child when the roof caves in?" "No," Alara said. "But surrender never did either." A beat of silence. Heavy. Final. Voss shook his head and left, footsteps ringing down the hall. Juno hesitated in the doorway. "He's gathering his fleet," she said softly. "He's pulling out." Alara's chest tightened, but she said only, "Let him." One more ally gone. One more weight added to the impossible. Hours later, the trap closed. Council hunter-killers dropped from FTL at the edge of the system, sleek, black as the void, each bristling with weapons tuned for extinction-level warfare. Valkyrie's bridge shuddered under the first barrage. Shields flared, then dimmed. "Multiple contacts!" Darius shouted. "They're cutting off every exit!" Alara barked orders. "Full power to engines! Reroute all non-essential systems!" "We won't make it," Saint warned quietly. "Projected survival, under 4%. Alara ignored the odds. Odds were for cowards. Another impact rocked the ship. Sparks rained from overhead panels. In the chaos, a single encrypted channel blinked to life on Alara's console. "Sender Voss." She hesitated, then opened it. "Alara." His gruff voice came through, distorted by jamming fields. "I don't forgive you. But I'm not letting them write our epitaph either." On the tactical map, Voss's fleet blinked back into existence. 20 battered cruisers and gunships, charging the council lines head-on like dying gods. Nightfall led the charge, cannons blazing. The council fleet staggered under the sudden assault. A window. A slim, desperate chance. "Punch it!" Alara screamed. Valkyrie surged forward, engines howling. Behind them, the battlefield exploded into a maelstrom of burning wreckage and silent screams. Voss's ships took the brunt, shielding the retreat. One by one, their lights winked out. Nightfall burned last. In her final moments, Voss's ship rammed a council dreadnought, detonating in a blast so bright it carved a second sunrise over Titan's ruins. Alara watched it all, jaw locked, heart breaking. She had no words. Only a vow searing itself deeper into her bones. Their sacrifice would not be wasted. It couldn't be. Safe, temporarily, in deep drift space, Valkyrie's crew counted the cost. 27% of the fleet lost. 2 more colonies erased. Alara stood alone on the observation deck, staring out at the endless night. Darius found her there. "You couldn't have done anything different," he said. She didn't answer. "Voss knew what he was doing," he continued. "We all did." Still no answer. Darius exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "There's a storm coming, Alara. Worse than anything we've seen." "I know," she said finally, voice raw. And we'll face it," she said. "Because we're human." Simple words. Small. But they were the bedrock under everything else. Darius nodded, eyes burning. Behind them, the stars waited, cold, vast, merciless. Ahead, a new battle brewed. The Council believed they could break humanity. They had no idea. The Council hadn't seen the fury of a wounded people yet. They would. And when they did, nothing would save them. The Council's homeworld loomed ahead, a world of mirrored spires, oceans that reflected foreign stars, and endless fields where victory had once seemed eternal. Now, it was just another target. In Valkyrie's war room, the final plan burned in the air between them. No escape routes. No second chances. "This is suicide," Juno whispered. Elara stared at the map, unblinking. "No," she said. "It's a message." Darius nodded grimly. "One they'll never forget." All across the fleet, what remained of it, humans prepared for a strike no one believed possible. Ships scarred by 100 battles patched themselves one last time. Weapons scavenged from forgotten wars gleamed with hurried repairs. Uniforms were stitched from hope and necessity. Every soul aboard knew what they faced. None hesitated. As Valkyrie broke atmosphere, alarm screamed. Council defense grids lit up the sky, stitching it with fire. Orbital batteries rained plasma, carving infernos across the heavens. Elara gripped the railing as the ship bucked and trembled. "Stay on course!" she barked. Darius cursed under his breath but obeyed, hands dancing over controls. "We'll never make it straight through." "We don't have to," Elara said. In the distance, dozens of smaller human ships peeled off, drawing fire, sacrificing themselves to punch a hole. One after another, their signatures winked out. For a heartbeat, the sky itself seemed to mourn. Then Valkyrie plunged through the breach, trailing smoke and defiance. Ahead, the heart of the Council rose, a vast citadel of light and shadow. The place where verdicts had been handed down. Where destinies had been stolen. Elara's voice cut through the chaos. "Take us in." Inside the Council chamber, panic spread like wildfire. Councilors who once debated terms of surrender now screamed for evacuation. Advisors who once preached patience now trampled each other for shuttles. At the center, Vierak and Saylara stood frozen, watching the disaster unfold through the crystalline walls. "They can't be here," Vierak hissed. "They can't." But they were. Moments later, Valkyrie breached the upper dome, scattering shards of glass like falling stars. The ship's battered frames slammed into the central courtyard with a deafening crash. From the smoking wreckage, Elara emerged, armor scorched, eyes blazing. Behind her, human soldiers poured out, weapons drawn, hearts unbroken. Elara raised her voice, cutting through the chaos. "This isn't a negotiation." Council guards scrambled to resist. Plasma bolts hissed across the marble floors. But the humans didn't falter. They moved like a tide, measured, relentless. Darius and Juno flanked Elara, cutting down resistance with brutal efficiency. Within minutes, the hall was theirs. Councilors cowered in corners, their arrogance shattered. Elara strode to the central dais, stepping over the wreckage of centuries. Vierak rose, trembling with rage and disbelief. "You would destroy everything we built?" Elara met his gaze without pity. "You destroyed it the moment you thought we'd forget." Saylara's voice echoed, synthetic and cold. "You think this changes anything? Another generation will rise. Another accord will be written." Elara shook her head. "No," she said softly. "Not this time." She drew a simple device from her belt, small, almost unremarkable. The pulse bomb. Not to kill. To erase. The device would wipe the Council's archives, their laws, their judgments, their histories, everything they had used to bind and break others. In seconds, their civilization would be memory. Elara placed it on the dais. "Your crimes won't be forgotten. But your power will." Vierak lunged forward with a snarl. Darius dropped him with a single shot. Across the chamber, councilors wailed. Some begged. Some cursed. None mattered anymore. Elara activated the device. A low hum filled the air, rising into a howl. Lights flickered. Structures shuddered. She turned to her people. "Time to go." Outside, the sky cracked open as Valkyrie's emergency transports lifted away, carrying the surviving crew. Behind them, the Council citadel imploded, collapsing inward like a dying star. By the time the humans reached orbit, nothing remained but dust and silence. On the bridge, battered and bloodied, Elara stared at the world falling away. No one spoke. There were no cheers. No celebrations. Just a quiet, aching catharsis. The war wasn't over. Battles would come. Losses would pile higher. But a message had been carved across the galaxy in fire and blood. Humanity bows to no one. Darius limped to her side, his armor scorched. What's next? Elara watched the fading planet. We rebuild, she said. He smiled faintly. And after that? She finally allowed herself a real smile, small, tired, but alive. After that, she said, we remind the stars who we are. The damaged fleet gathered in formation, a ragged constellation of stubborn hope. Engines flared. New courses plotted. Into the unknown. Into tomorrow. Into a future not given but seized. Because humanity hadn't survived by mercy. They had survived by fighting for every scrap of it. And now? Now they were ready to live.